When we imagine Nazi Germany, we imagine violence, fanaticism, fear. We tell ourselves that ordinary people were swept up by terror or propaganda. But there's another layer, a chemical one. Behind the marching boots and raised flags was a drug quietly circulating through the bloodstream of an entire nation. A drug that dissolved hesitation, erased exhaustion, and made obedience feel natural. The story of Nazi Germany is darker than most people realise, because millions of Germans weren't just following orders. They were following them because of methamphetamine. This is the story of Pervitin, the pill that powered the Third Reich. To understand Pervitin, we need to rewind to the late 1800s. In 1887, a Romanian chemist named Lazar Adeleanu synthesized a strange new compound in a Berlin laboratory. He named it phenyl isopropylamine. Today we know it as amphetamine. At the time nobody cared. It sat on a shelf forgotten, just another chemical curiosity from the age of early industrial chemistry. But then came the 20th century, a world obsessed with efficiency, speed, productivity, the idea that science could reshape the human body and mind. In 1919, a Japanese researcher modified Adeleanu's molecule and created something even stronger, methamphetamine, more potent, more addictive, more dangerous. Methamphetamine didn't just stimulate the brain, it hijacked it, flooding it with dopamine and adrenaline, switching off fatigue and magnifying confidence to unnatural levels. For decades it was a fringe chemical, used here and there for asthma, for sinus relief, for staying awake. Then Germany rediscovered it, and everything changed. In 1934, a young chemist named Fritz Hauschild began working for a Berlin pharmaceutical company called Temmler. Hauschild was fascinated by the idea that a pill could make a worker tireless, a student focused, a soldier unstoppable. He looked at methamphetamine and saw potential, not danger. By 1938, Temmler launched Pervitin, branding it as a miracle pill for modern life. Early adverts showed smiling secretaries, housewives managing impossible workloads, university students staring confidently at textbooks. More awake, more efficient, more you. Germany loved it. Doctors handed it out freely. It was sold over the counter. People compared it to chocolate, something small, harmless, uplifting. Berlin developed a reputation as the city that never slept. And behind the nightlife, the long shifts, the frantic productivity, Pervitin was doing the heavy lifting. But someone else noticed too, the German army. By the late 1930s, the Wehrmacht was searching for any advantage, technological, tactical, or biological. They ran secret tests. Normal soldiers were given Pervitin, then pushed through obstacle courses and endurance drills. The results were alarming. Men who looked exhausted moments earlier suddenly marched for hours. Reaction times sharpened, confidence spiked, fear seemed to evaporate. Reports noted that the drug produced, quote, an energetic, aggressive mood, a strong will to win. For the Nazi leadership, obsessed with force, domination and submission, this was the perfect psychological cocktail. The military placed its first huge order, and then another. By 1940, Pervitin wasn't a supplement. It was official military gear, as essential as ammunition. Soldiers carried rifles, canteens, bandages, and methamphetamine. When Germany stormed across Europe, the world was shocked by the speed of the attacks. They called it Blitzkrieg, lightning war. But lightning doesn't strike for 3 days straight. German tank crews drove for 36 to 48 hours without rest. Infantry marched through the night. Pilots flew bombing runs long after their bodies should have given out. One medical officer wrote, without Pervitin, we would have lost the Battle of France. To the outside world, it looked like ruthless efficiency, unstoppable willpower. Inside the tanks and trenches, it was something else entirely. Wide, staring eyes, jittering hands, empty faces, hearts racing at dangerous speeds. The soldiers felt invincible, but chemically induced invincibility has a cost, and it's not just physical. We often talk about meth as a destructive drug, damaging, corrosive, addictive, but the most disturbing effect isn't the crash, it's what happens during the high. Methamphetamine reduces activity in brain regions responsible for empathy, hesitation, and self-reflection. It creates a state where obedience feels natural, and doubt feels distant. In another context, these effects might only harm the individual, but in a totalitarian state where violence and hatred are official policy, the consequences are horrific. Pervitin didn't create Nazi ideology, but it greased the machinery. It made acts that should have been unthinkable feel merely routine. It made long marches to dark places feel just another order. And it made it easier for ordinary men to become instruments of a brutal system. By 1941, Germany wasn't just a nation at war. It was a nation medicated into obedience. Civilian use skyrocketed. Factory workers used it to keep up with insane production quotas. Students used it to cram. Housewives used it just to cope. Even postal workers were issued Pervitin to keep them awake on long rounds. Addiction spread quietly through homes, schools, barracks and offices. Doctors documented strange exhaustion, hallucination, heart failures. But by then war had swallowed everything. No one wanted to slow down. The country was caught in a feedback loop. More pressure, more Pervitin, more Pervitin, more pressure. Germany was fighting a war on borrowed energy. As the war dragged on, supplies tightened. Soldiers who had been running on meth for months suddenly had none. Some became depressed, others paranoid, aggressive or erratic. Many crashed so badly they became almost catatonic. A few experienced full psychosis, seeing enemies that weren't there, firing at shadows. Even Hitler's inner circle wasn't immune. His personal physician injected him with stimulant cocktails to keep him functioning during the collapsing final years of the war. By 1945, Germany's superhuman vision lay in ruins. What Pervitin had promised, strength, endurance, clarity, dissolved into exhaustion, collapse and chaos. The drug that fueled the war ended up exposing the fragility underneath. When we talk about the horrors of the Nazi regime, we focus on the ideology, the hatred, the violence. But history is also shaped by quieter forces, by chemistry, by biology, by the tiny pills people swallow without thinking. Pervitin didn't cause the war, but it helped sustain it. It made impossible demands seem achievable. It numbed the conscience just enough to do what should never be done. This story isn't just about the past. It's a warning about any society, any government that tries to alter human thinking on a mass scale. Because when a regime learns to tamper with the mind, the line between obedience and atrocity becomes frighteningly thin. If you found this video interesting, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.